Uh, High value simps definitely fuck up the market for everybody else. High value simps drive up prices. High value simps drive up women's perceived value. High value simps mess up the market for most of us, for average dudes, right? When you happen to be a guy who has money, you have resources, you have access to certain places, you certainly should not be using those things to mess up the market for everybody else. And how do you mess up the market when you have that many resources? Well, what you start doing is you start spending a lot of money on women, too much money than necessary. You start flying them out. You start booking plane tickets. And you see the whole culture of, oh, I flew her out, bro. I spent 10K, I flew her out, I brought her here, she spent 2 weeks with me, I took her out shopping and all this shit. You're spending money on a girl just to get some ass, right? Because you think you have resources. It's not a big deal to you, but because it's not a big deal to you, you end up messing up the whole market for everybody else. Because as we all know, once the girl has an experience like that with a high value dude, she doesn't want to go back. So you end up messing up the market for everybody. And that's a phenomenon that's been going on in America and the West in general for years now. For years, guys have been doing that. Spending a lot of money and just blowing the bag on these women. Even giving them money, buying them expensive cars, doing all this stuff. Thinking, oh, I'm just being a good guy. I'm just being a provider and I'm doing all that stuff. But in the end, she doesn't stay with you. Or she's never fully with you. I think the worst thing that you find out is that half the time, these girls are never fully invested in the relationship with these guys, these high value guys. Like, you know, the girl is just trying to get what she could get in the short term, a bag, some money, a car, you know, to have her student debt paid. Basically, extract, you know, everything, all the resources that can be extracted from that relationship. And she's never truly fully invested because sooner or later she knows it's going to come to an end. But the high value simp doesn't care. He's just spending the money like, oh, it's nothing to me, bro. 10K, it's nothing to me, bro. 20K, it's nothing. 50K, it's nothing. I'm just going to keep spending the money. But in the end, it messes up the market for everybody else. And now, even worse, you're starting to see some of that situation overseas. So geomaxing is actually becoming more difficult now because you have guys going overseas and actually spending a bag, right? The same amount of money that they would spend in America, they're going to Colombia, they're going to Brazil, and they're spending that same amount of money. Why? Because they're simps. Because that's what simps do. That's what simps do. They're thinking because the girl is bad, because she's fine, whatever word you want to use, that it's okay to spend the money on her. Regardless of what the local market looks like. The local market could be, okay, you spend $50 on the girl to get what you want. That's all you have to spend is $50. That could be the local market. These guys come in and they're spending 500, 1,000, 10 times, 20 times more. What do you think that's gonna do? It's gonna mess up the market because it's not just gonna be one guy. That's the issue. When there's one simp, there's usually many simps. Right? Simps tend to, you know, to be in packs. Where you have one simp, you have two simps, you have three simps. These guys actually work together and they hang together, right? So you can imagine if it happened once, well, she's kind of expecting it to happen a second time, a third time. And if there are many simps doing that, well, she's gonna get used to it. Obviously, if it was only one dude that did that, she'd be like, okay, that was an exception. But when you have many simps doing the same thing for her, she gets used to it and she never wants to go back. She never wants to deal with anybody else again. That's basic psychology. It's kind of like if you had a job and you were making 100 grand, and now you gotta go to a job where you're making 30K. You really don't want to do that. You'd rather be unemployed than go back down to that level. Well, it's the same thing with women. When they get used to these simps that shower them with gifts and money and trips and all that stuff, if it happens just a few times, if it happens like 2-3 times, they don't want to go back. Don't want to go back. But that's the issue. The issue is these high value simps, they don't learn from that. They don't realize that it's not okay. They think it's perfectly fine, right? It ain't tricking if you got it. It ain't tricking if you got it. If you got the money to spend, just fucking spend it. And that's the issue with simps, with high value simps. You know, not only are they simps, but they happen to have the money to express their simpery. That's the real issue. These guys are a problem, man. We gotta do something about it. I mean, you see a lot of content on YouTube trying to stop them, but in the end, can you really stop them? Can you really stop these? I don't think you can, because that's really their best strategy. They don't have any other strategy. No game, right? Or maybe they do have game, but they just don't care as much, and it fucks up the market for everybody else. Not just in the US, not just in the West, but like I said, now too, overseas, geomaxing locations. The same thing is happening in Brazil and Colombia and many places where guys won't even be able to go to anymore as a last resort, because the simps have done fucked up the market, man. It's fucking pathetic.